How soon do you become fodder for Howard? And did you realize that was going to be part of this gig, that you would be coming in and having to tell him, Howard, no, you can't do that? And did you enjoy that? And why was it you? Why couldn't it have been like the program manager? Why did you have to become the guy that had to say no to everything? Usually, I always think of the general manager knowing the business a little bit. It's just the guy who makes sure that the money's coming in. But you became the dad of the show.
Yeah, I did. I was the hall monitor. I was both. You know, I mean, it became that. It became me, because when there's that word again. Now I'm going to think about that every time I say it.
Absolutely.
It was me, because it was my responsibility. General managers are responsible for the licenses of their radio stations, and I had a conversation with my boss, Mel. You know, when we got the first FCC complaint. You know, which we were not guilty, and we were never guilty, and said, you know, what's the most important job? Well, the most important job is protecting the license, right? So that's when I started having to come in the morning and edit the show, you know, and I was already kind of involved anyway because he just liked to do that. He liked to drag everybody in. And I mean this as the ultimate. I couldn't mean that, you know, in any more complimentary a way, because he finds humor in everything, you know, and he finds that, you know, it's his ability to take people and to make them in some ways more than they are, or to take advantage of whatever they are, you know, for their comedic content. So whether, you know, I was the in quotes boss, you know, I was in the books, you know, with a picture of me in his books and stuff like that. And he liked to call my wife sometimes and joke about, you know, your husband's so handsome, you know, I mean, and you know, try and put my wife in awkward positions, because that's what made him funny, you know. And who doesn't like the guy who pokes, you know, at his boss? And I was just happened to be that guy in that spot. And I was enough there's enough of me, or enough of ham in me, that I was fine with it, and I got it early on. I remember very, very early on at one of our Infinity Broadcasting managers meetings, presenting just that. I said, if you don't get the joke, you're not going to be successful. And I got the joke from the very beginning. I'm proud of that. You know, I figured it out. I figured out how to go along with the joke. You know, there were times that he and I fought, but for the most part, we got along. And I always respected him. I think he always respected me. And, you know, so I'm proud of the 20-year relationship that we had, that I think was built on mutual respect. It certainly was on my part. I can't answer for him, but I think he'd say that. And we figured it out. And I was fine with it. You know, I mean, I hated it at times. You know, I hated having to be the guy, you know, to tell him you can't do this or you can't do that, and argue over words. Because when I became the censor, you know, I didn't want to be a censor. But it was my job, you know, and I accepted the job. I got paid to do it, and therefore accepted that responsibility.
You mentioned something here, and I was listening, and it made me think of the fact that, you know, when you'd come in, it clearly he was angry, but everyone always says, oh, he's different off the air. But it does become a great bit for the radio that, oh, here comes Tom. There was theme songs. Here comes Tom. Tom, it's time to stop having fun. And all these songs. So it became a bit, and he created a character for you, and so maybe that's what it was. I mean, as bad as we all think it was for you and him having to deal with you, the fact that it was a bit just made it good radio, and that's all that really mattered to him.
Yeah, and that's all that really mattered to me. End of the day, that's all that really mattered to me. And I knew if we were arguing, it probably wasn't about. It may have been about things that had related to, you know, a body part or a body function or whatever, you know. But it wasn't dealing directly with it. And you know, and those were the things where the people who, when they started to super focus on him, you know, and the religious right, you know, was going out of their way to try and drive him off the air. Those are the things that they were focused on. And if we were arguing about whether 50 Cent, you know, or I should say properly, whether 50 Cent could say bitch 100 times, you know, in 5 minutes, or, you know, or whatever the other things would be, that at least it wasn't about those things that, that we were being super focused on by people on the religious right.
What did you think of that at the point of where you're now running the dump button? I mean, you're the executive of the show, and you should be dealing with other stuff, but you really just sat there and had to listen, right? I mean, did you ever think?
Yeah, oh yeah. No, I sat there for 6+ years, listening to every word, and editing it when, unfortunately, when I thought I needed to.
How hard was that? How hard was it to know that this is going to create some drama later, that he knows it?
I didn't even think about it. I just did what I had to do.
Okay.
Honestly, it was regrettable. I didn't want it, but I knew I had to do it. And the idea was I was going to do it for a very brief period of time until we found a person better suited to do it. But we only did after I got sick. When I got sick in '98, obviously I wasn't coming in, and I was out of work for 14 weeks. My life was on the line, so editing the show was no longer a priority. I was in a hospital, as sick as I possibly could be, and so we found somebody. And then when I came back to work, which I did 14 whatever it was weeks later, that person stayed on that job, and and I'd go down and I'd aid and abet him if I needed to, and then so I stopped doing it. What got me out of being the show's editor? Stage 4 cancer.
So maybe a light at the end. Light at the end of the tunnel.
Else, but that was what did it.
Say light at the end of the tunnel, maybe there. Poor Andre,
yeah.
Poor Dead Air Dave, though. Those guys just got.
Yep.
Did they? Are they? How are they doing? I guess I'll ask you. The PSTSD.
Dave, I think Dead Air is still on the air somewhere in New York. And Andre, I've kind of lost touch. When I left, I left. I was I had a nice long run. I was 60 years old about when I left, and I missed some of the people. I missed the action when I left. I liked it. I really did. And I enjoyed my job, and I especially enjoyed those 20 years. There's nothing better than those 20 years. But when I left, I was done. Do I listen to radio? Yep. Do I think about it sometimes as a professional? I'd like to think I was a professional, so I would think about it that way. And I have contact with some of the people who I worked with and who worked for me. But for the most part, I was done. I was ready to move on to whatever was next. And that, and fortunately for me, that became volunteering at Sloan Kettering and, and getting involved in trying to help other cancer patients when I was so lucky to be the survivor that I am.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that again at the end here, but I have a few people I want to ask you about. So, and these are key members, like Jackie. You had to deal with him every year. What was it like knowing in 2001 that he's saying no? I mean, tell me about that negotiation, because Jackie's been on here a few times, and he even relays that, I didn't want to do it anymore, but I did call back twice to see if I could get back in there. What were your thoughts when he finally decided not to stay? You and Howard had to. Just tell me about that. It's crazy because he called them the Beatles, and he was the fourth member of the Beatles.
Right.
But it was hard, I felt like, when I listened, because he was needed there, and you did replace him. But that little span of time there in 2001, how hard was it?
Well, it was a regrettable decision on his part. I liked Jackie and still, think kindly of Jackie. I have no idea how Jackie thinks of me. I haven't talked to him. I was the one handling that negotiation, and as I had in the past, and he had, we had tough negotiations prior to that. If I remember correctly, where he had walked for a little bit, and and Howard always wanted him back. But in this one in particular, I had made sure that Howard and I had conversations about it. He knew exactly what I was doing. I had talked to my boss, who was Mel, and said, this is, and made sure that I had all the money in line, and, had approvals for the money that I was offering him and all those kinds of things. So we had a final meeting. I put what was a very generous offer, what I believe was a very generous offer to Jackie on the table, guaranteed employment. I won't go into the specifics of it. But it was it should have been a life changer for him, given where he was and had been, and I actually remember some of my words in the meeting. I looked at him and said, Jackie, I should be the guy trying to to downplay you, to not take this offer, because it's a lot. I'm putting a lot on the table, but Jackie had encouraged me when I came back from cancer to kind of go on, when we started going on the road trips to Vegas, to make sure that I came, and said, why wouldn't you take it? Why not come? And so I appreciated that, and I appreciated the sense that I had of Jackie's caring about me at that point, and I tried to express that to him in this final meeting that we had, and I even said, I'm trying to remember the guy's name from MASH who left. And I used him as an analogy. The old TV show MASH, one of the main characters, left the show. And I said, don't be that guy. Stevenson, I think, was his last name.
Yeah, it was Hawkeye and Jamie Farr are the only two people, like Radar, the two people.
Yeah, but it was I think it was the first colonel, who was the boss of the MASH unit. And I said, don't be that guy. This is a serious offer. It's a lot of money, and we'd like you to stay. Obviously, I wouldn't put this on the table if we don't want you to stay. And he decided at that point that it wasn't good enough for him. And everybody, as I said, Howard knew, and the other principals that needed to know knew. And when he tried to come back after rejecting the proposal, it was decided. It wasn't my decision. It wasn't my end of the day decision. But it was decided that, no, time to move on. And I've always felt bad about that. If somehow this is reaching you, Jackie, I hope you understand that. I really did. I really did want you to take that. I really did want you to be part of it. But it was decided, it was enough, because what was going to happen the next time we went around.
I might work.
I wish I'd been able to encourage him with found the right words to make that offer stick with him to where he would have taken it.
I might work to get you two together. Maybe here on a nice Zoom call at the end of the year we can. Couple more. So Artie Lange comes in and changes the dynamic of the show, but for the better. I always say there's two great eras. For me, it's Jackie, then the Artie era. Artie, Howard leaves his microphone on. He didn't really it didn't seem like any issues with you during the show at K-Rock. It seemed like he was pretty much clean and feeling good, even though maybe he wasn't clean, but he was doing his job coming in. But all the
unfortunately, I don't think. I think in retrospect he wasn't, obviously. But in terms of dealing with him, he was I tried to communicate with Artie. I liked Artie a lot, and tried to communicate with Artie, in some of his troubled times, and failed, but Artie was a great guy. Or is a great guy, The only thing I don't like about Artie is a big Yankee fan. I'm a Met fan, But other than that, I can't think of anything we really disagreed on. And he was funny. He was quick. He was a big fan. When he first came on, it was at one level. Then after he proved himself a success there, his agent and I had a fairly easy negotiation over, on moving him up. But I always remember being in Vegas one year for those shows, and Artie was so smashed while we're doing these shows that I was actually sitting hiding on the side of the stage with my fingers through the back of his belt loop, so that he was sitting next to Fred, who had the control board. Howard obviously always and still runs his own board, I think. And that every time Artie tried to get up, I would pull on his belt loop to not let him get up, so he couldn't tip over and and probably fall into the into Fred's stuff. But yeah, Artie was great on the show. He added a different dynamic. Obviously, he wasn't writing like Jackie was writing, but he was adding because he was a very spontaneous, funny guy who had a lot of great stories that just added to the show.
Yeah, and I mean, you weren't there, and it was a different time. But how do you think you would have handled how his ending happened?
I don't know. I can't second guess anybody on that. It was, we are who we are. We do what we do to ourselves, and at the end of the day, we have to be responsible for that, and to ourselves. So I'm sure the guys at the management team at Sirius, I'm sure they did everything they could to keep that situation viable.
And no contact with him lately? I know he's kind of coming back out of...
No. I'd be happy to, but I tried, and maybe he doesn't even know that I tried. I don't know. And maybe this message gets to him, and we could argue about who's better, the Mets or the Yankees, now that we've got a viable owner of the Mets in New York. We're excited.
Yeah, here's another. So we'll get that one. It's gonna be Brad, Tom, and guest as our new podcast. Well, welcome, congratulations, Tom. Couple more minutes. So when Howard mentions that he's going to Sirius, it's on the air. Tell me about that day and just not knowing, because I think what I remember, Robin didn't even know. I mean, he kept this completely.
No. I mean, as far as I knew, I certainly didn't know. Nobody knew, and and it was. There was a panic moment, not a panic moment, but it certainly was a stress moment. And then that actually in some ways became, almost, it was kind of more difficult to deal with, than just being the editor of the show. Because now I wasn't the editor of the show anymore. There was Dead Air Dave was on the button at that point because Andre had left, and but it created a whole new, what can he do? What can he say? He figured it out. He figured out how to, how to make it work, and I think we figured out how to, and I say we, I figured out how to kind of hold it together for whatever that period, but how could he not go?
Could you have gone, and would you?
How could he have not left?
Yeah, but could you have gone? Did you ever think about going? Was that ever a thought in your mind to continue on and maybe follow him there? Is that something you could have done?
I don't know. You'd have to. I don't know. Did I think about it? I listen. I love the show. I truly. I love Howard. There are a few people, that I respect more than him. Family, Mel Karmazin and he, in terms of professionalism, I can't think of any two more professional people that, that people should aspire to try and be like. Professional, hardworking. Hopefully I was some of that. And I didn't. I'm not going to, could I, would I don't know. It didn't, didn't go there. I was quite happy to leave when I left CBS. Maybe I would have been smarter to try and find another job at that point. I decided not to. And,
well, it just felt like you guys were intertwined together, that you might, I felt like
20 years, I don't know if he makes 20 years, I'll be jealous because I wanted to be the only manager who worked with him for that length of time. But the good news is that he's had different people. Although I guess there's the one guy who whose name is going to escape me at the moment. has been there the entire time and was influential in bringing Howard over. And but when it came to radio manager, I was hoping that I was going to be able to say, well, I worked with him for 20 and nobody did it longer. And I think he's getting ready to, he's coming at the end of 15 now on Sirius, and I'm waiting, like I think everybody else is waiting to hear the new announcement, unless it's been made and I just missed it. And to see if he continues. If he does, I hope it's for 3 more years and not for 5. So I can still say I did it for 20.
Yeah, and our conversation we had before this, just on the phone, you don't have any bitterness at all. I mean, you guys, it's really nice to hear. How much contact do you have with Howard? I mean, you've talked to him. You talk about him glowingly, and you said that you guys still kind of have. How often do you get a chance to maybe email him, text him, or any of that stuff?
I'm a semi-regular. I try not to bug him. When I got out of I was getting out of the car on Saturday morning, and I had listened to the Sunday morning. Now I forget, so long ago. It was 24 or 48 hours ago. I forget whether it was Saturday or Sunday. The days run together. I sent him a little email. So I just listened to that interview. It was great. Thank you for making my write up. Very pleasant and going, and full of listening to 2 giants at what they do. Do it. And so, as I said, yeah, I'm a fan. I consider him a friend. I think he considers me the same, but I can't answer for that part. I can only answer for my part.
Do you have any favorite moments that come up when people ask you, what's your favorite moments of being on the show? Of course, beating up your suit, losing in golf to Stuttering John.
By the way, that's certainly not one of my favorite moments. Breaking my hand, punching a suit after a frustrating night of cards, and then having to play it on the air. It was fine, and I wasn't. I didn't think about it. I didn't even intend to tell him that I had done it. The person I felt worse for was my poor wife, who came in after I had punched the door, and she, or the suit, and then the door, and saw me and saw that, and just said, "Not now, honey." My long-suffering wife that I put her through that. Listen.
I mean, is there like a moment on the show where you're like, well, that was fun?
For the most part, it's, it was 20 years of a wonderful time, stressful at times, professionally very active, being part of that and being associated with the show got me out of some speeding tickets. He created, like he does for everybody or a lot of people, he made me a minor personality and, in a bigger world. And that was fun, and it still happens. I still, why would you want to talk to me 20 years later? Because some of that still resonates, and I like that, as I said, I'm a big enough ham, that, I didn't shy away from that, when I was doing it professionally. There's some benefits to it, and still, and there's people who still say, "Are you?" And I go, "Yeah, yeah, that's me." And I don't hide from it. I'm proud of it.
Well, you're handsome at 74. I got to say, you still got it.
73. Don't age me prematurely, okay?
My mom's 74.
Right.
A lot of golf. What are you shooting these days? I'm not really good at handicaps, but are you in the 70s or are you still in the 80s? What are you shooting these days?
Oh no, you know what? If this comes across as boastful, then I apologize for it. But I'm better than probably 3-year-olds out there. I shoot my age on a semi-regular basis and beat it. I'm actually almost better now than I've ever been. And I'm always competitive, I'm a competitive pain in the ass, but, and you can tell the people who play golf with me will tell you that. So yeah, I try and take care of myself, like I said, I'm going to the gym when you and I hang up. And I play a lot. I'm not embarrassed by it. I like doing it, and I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah, I'd like to get into the 90s myself, but We may be neighbors one day in the winter.
I want to get in the 90s too, but that means I want to live to be 90 so I can shoot 90.
What, and when Stuttering John beat you on that one hole, that has to still resonate, right?
That was probably the low point. That was the low point.
But you could tell the anger. You could tell the anger was there for real.
Oh, I was pissed. I mean, but it happened. It was, it became part of the legend of the show, I guess. Not the legend of the show, but it just became, one of those things that was part of the show that added to it. And but no, that was probably the low point of my golf career. The low point of my professional career was losing at golf to Stuttering John that night.
But then you could just have a nice, fun contract negotiation where you don't offer him anything, right? And that made him mad, and you kick him out of the.
Yeah. I mean, I think John's doing well. I hope he is. I know he's got a nice family, and I hope he's doing well. But I don't know where he is now.
Well, I hope that at 73 and a half, I get to look as good and have the life that you have because you're golfing, and it seems like you're healthy. You recovered from melanoma, and you're doing some great stuff at Sloan Kettering. And we started talking about them, but I'm curious. It's to me like once I retire, which I think about now every day, I try to think about it, and hopefully in 10 years I'll be able to do something. And what I would do after it, I think this would be something I'd be interested in because, like I said, both my parents had it, other family members, my Uncle Phil. I mean, it's never. We hope that there's someday going to be a cure, but just again, the Patient and Family Advisory Council for Quality at Sloan Kettering is what you're doing, and how rewarding is it? I mean, is it exactly what you thought it would be once you started volunteering there? And if there's anything else that we may have missed in our kind of early talk about it, it just seems like such a great thing, and the fact that, like I said, you're going to talk to my mom is so awesome. Tell me anything else that we may have missed in our earlier chat about the P.
I don't think we. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I wanted to do the acronym, the PFACQ.
Right, PFAC.
Okay.
It's it's a group of highly motivated, either patients or family givers or caregivers that interact with some of the highest levels. At the highest levels at the hospital, participating in committees, participating with patients, and other caregivers to try and help them as they go through their journey. And everybody's journey is different when it comes to cancer. It's the one journey you don't want to be on, but once you're on it, the more help you get, I think the better off you are. The hospital takes, as I said, I hate to be redundant, and I'm not going to say the B word, because they take patient care seriously. They take patient relationship-based care seriously. They're the best doctors, the best nurses, the best at everything that they do. And they try and do better and better and improve it by being sensitive to what patients think, feel, need as we go through the journey. And this council helps give input at all levels in the hospital to improve the hospital's efforts to do that.
I mean, it's just amazing stuff you're doing. So again, I can't say enough. That's great that you're doing that and helping my mom, and hopefully she'll get through it and be golfing as well. She doesn't golf.
Yep.
Yeah, she doesn't golf.
Yep.
But
that's the goal. The goal is to get everybody through it, to come out better on the other side. It clearly changes your perspective on life. It changed mine. Although in some ways, and when I went back to work, I think I was the same, miserable SOB that I was before. But I know I really wasn't. I love doing it. I really do, and I love the fact that the hospital is so committed to allowing us to participate. and to have input and to aid these brilliant doctors and nurses as they do what they do, which is the highest level of professional care that you could get.
Well, again thank you for joining me today. I know a lot of people are going to be excited to hear from you. They love that voice. They love hearing kind of the mannerisms that you have to say, percuss and absolutely. And in the back of their head, hopefully they hear some Fred music. Here comes Tom, time to stop.
Yeah. Or the golf swing. Listen, I had to close on that part. I had a wonderful 20 years. I'm so glad I had that opportunity to work with everybody. Can't forget Gary. Certainly can't forget Robin. Can't forget Fred. But the ultimate tip of the hat is to Howard, who's the genius behind everything that happens in that show and the true driver of everything that has made the Howard Stern show what it has become, which is the biggest thing in the history of radio. So, I'll try and quote Shakespeare. I think I played my part well. I hope I did, but I'm really glad I had the opportunity to play it and then to contribute in whatever way I did. And to take advantage of whatever way I did of what that show was all about, and how proud I am of my association with it, him and everybody else that was and is part of that show.
Yeah, and you were a major foil, and you were needed, but you did it so well. And what I realized again today was that he was in on the bit, which is even better because that makes you a fun ball.